Are you ready? For September? Because it's coming. Here he comes. Draw your boat. Smoked him, man. Welcome to the next installment of the School of September series, brought to you by the Western Huntsman Podcast, in conjunction and partnership with Phelps Game Calls and Scream Extreme Mountain Gear. Elk Hunting 201. Class is in session.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is your monthly installment of the School of September, because here it is April. We're coming up to mid-April, end of April here, and we've only got a few months left to gear up for my favorite time of the year. So on this month's episode, I'm really excited about this one because I'm going to tell you guys a little story. We started the School of September series. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years ago now that I'm saying it, but every year we do this. We start around April. Every month we release an episode for School of September. This is the 2022 season. And one of the first people I had on for School of September was a guy that I would bet my next paycheck you probably know. His name is Paul Medel, and he is also known as the Elknut. And, guys, just for your information, it is that episode that we released with Paul a couple years ago is the #1 most downloaded episode in the Western Huntsman Podcast history. And that's saying something, because we've had some big names on this show. And a lot of you are very enthusiastic about listening to Paul, which makes you my people, because I am too. Paul, I appreciate you joining me, buddy. Thanks for being here.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I appreciate the offer that you've put before me and asked me to come back on. Heck, you never know. So, hey, let's talk some elk.
Let's talk elk. That's the plan. And so I wanted to get this out because we were talking before I hit record there. I've had a lot of requests to get you back on for School of September, because I think people just get a lot of information that's super applicable to them when they go out into the Elkwoods. And the reason is because your passion just like bleeds through the microphone, and you could just feel the excitement in your voice. Every time I hear a show with you on it, or watch like a seminar like you, like I was telling you, you were on the Elk Collective, with my buddy Dirk. And every time I get done either watching or listening to something with you on it, I'm just pumped. I'm pumped for elk season. And then the reality of, oh man, it's only April will hit me.
Hey, I feel the same way.
I wanted to, I have before we get into the nuts and bolts of actual elk hunting tips and tactics, we've got a unique one we're going to talk about tonight. I wanted to ask, going back to the last time you were on the show, you told me, you talked about this time in your life when you were like living in an area where you were taking care of elk and able to monitor them like daily. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, of course, because I did that very thing for many years.
I'm just curious. I guess I bring it up because my wife and I, we just bought some property, and we moved a little further north out of Coeur d'Alene here, up in Clark Fork, and we've got our property, and it kind of butts up to some public land and some other private land and stuff like that. The point being, I've got elk all over this place, and I'm getting a kick out of seeing how close I can get without them knowing, so I could just monitor them behaviorally. And see what they do, see what they say. I'm surprised to find out how many or how much cow elk new at each other, in like March in the snow, that kind of stuff. Can you talk about what you learned from being so close to them, and maybe even any tips you'd have for me to be able to just get closer and monitor and watch them to learn? Does that make sense how I'm asking that?
Yeah, you're doing exactly what I would suggest. That's what I would suggest right there. There's no reason for you to start talking to them. That's not where you learn. Yeah. You're not trying to teach them something, hopefully. You're trying to...
Whoop, you cut out there, buddy. Can you hear me?
Okay, guys, we're back. Sorry about that little mishap there. Sometimes this is what happens. I've said it before. When you get a couple of Idaho boys on the line, things drop out. So, Paul, we dropped out. You were explaining that I was doing it right by not communicating with the elk on my land, just observing and listening and watching. And that's kind of where I dropped you there. Sorry about that.
Hey, it was my fault. Actually, the internet went off on my end. So, what do you do? Like you said, it's Idaho.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is what it is. So, but yeah, I'm super enthusiastic to hear about, like, kind of how that changed your perception of elk when you were monitoring, because you were saying you would like feed them and stuff.
Yeah, well, those particular elk, I did. Yes. We actually received, the hay from Fish and Game, and they brought in just ton after tons after tons of hay, fenced it all in 10 feet high. And then in the morning and in the evening, I would feed them. But during the day, these elk would bed all within the acreage that we had up there. So we're the only home there. There was nobody else. So it was easy. Nobody was messing with them, other than people would call and want to get invited in and see these elk, because you couldn't just drive to them. You had to come up to our place, and then we could show them to you. But to sit there and listen to these elk and listen to them, bugling, in January, February, March, April, May, until they finally started making their way out. As the snow declined, they would follow the snow line. But to sit there and listen to them, I just learned so much. And at first it had nothing to do with, I need to learn about elk. It really wasn't that. It was being there and then seeing them day after day, and then being intrigued with what I was hearing and watching, and even seeing them out my window. And I would see their interaction, and it was just kind of, that's how it snowballed. And I obviously showed an interest in it. This was a long, long time ago. And one thing led to another. But just seeing the uniqueness of their language, what I mean by their language is, it was mostly all cow talk. And I could tell by the difference in the tone or in the emotion, the length of the call, the volume of the call, how it was sending a different message to either a specific elk or the elk themselves as a whole. And it took me months to figure that out. Don't think I was out there 2 or 3 days and I understood all that. No, sure. This was months, and maybe even to the next year or two, until I started putting things together as to what was going on. But at first, I'm like anyone else. I mean, it was just a bunch of elk chatter. I didn't try to evaluate anything and say this sound means this and this means. That didn't even mean squat to me. But in time, I could see the reaction of other elk to the sounds that the others were making, and it was like, and that's how it kind of started. It was something like that, and then it got me excited to want to be in the field with it. So I'd go out there in June, July, August, and try to find herds that were coming up following the snow line, and I would sit with them, and I learned even more. So it wasn't just a 3 or 4 month thing. It would just go on and on all the way into and through hunting season. And let me tell you something. You could read all the books in the world and all the DVDs and apps you want, but to sit there with them like that and to hear it repeatedly, and that's what hit a home run with me, is everything I was learning, it was repetitive. And it wasn't like I heard something once or twice and go, oh, this is that. No, I had to keep hearing it over and over in the same context and realizing this is what was going on. And one thing led to another, and I still learn today, but it was just a lot of things that rooted me right there and sprung me into wanting to hunt elk and do it through calling. At no time during any of that did I ever consider there was going to be an Elknut Outdoors or I'm going to make a DVD. Well, at that time it was a VHS and cassettes and stuff. There was no such thing as a DVD, but that's what it was. And so it did end up doing, going that direction, and all the way up until present day, where I actually kind of went back a little bit because as you get older, it's like, okay, I've done enough of this, I'm just going to kind of plateau out and not have such a busy life at it. But still, you don't shake the passion for elk. That you never shake. You can shake the business end of it a little bit to fit more your lifestyle now. And that's what I've done. But basically, all in all, if you want to know anything about elk, and I mean, you want to know any sound, anything, just ask me. Because I am so confident. I'm not trying to be overconfident and braggart. That's not what I mean. But I know what elk are saying. I know the message that's being sent through each individual sound or multiple sounds. And it's taken me a lifetime to figure it out. But it's enjoyable. You don't have to kill everything. You just don't have to. I mean, I do enjoy the hunt. Don't get me wrong. But understanding it and getting to that level, there's only a handful of people, I believe, in the world that can do that have that, seek out that avenue, because it does take a dedication. There's nothing you're going to just go to college for and learn this. I mean, you might get a nugget here and there, but not as a whole. And it's enjoyable to go out there, and just to watch them be themselves and understand what's going on. It really is. So what you're doing, keep doing it. Watch their behavior. That was one of the biggest things I noticed, that, guys will go, oh, when an elk barks and they run and they scatter and they're warning everything in the neighborhood, it's true. But elk also show like two other signs without making a sound that can move the entire group or a small group, whatever it is, out of there by their body language. And if you spook an elk and all of a sudden everything goes quiet during your hunt and it's like a cow or a calf or a spike or anything, and they pin their ears back and run by the group, that whole herd, they might have barked 100 times, because it serves the same purpose. The same thing as if their head is erect.
They're
and anybody that's been
visually.
Immediately. And as they're running, it attracts all their attention. And so it's like, why are they running? Why is that one running? And the head is erect, just as stiff as a giraffe. And maybe even the ears pinned back at the same time, and off they go through the group or near the group, and they all read it as a threat in the area. It's as bad as barking. And so, I learned all these things out there while I was with them. These are things that you just don't really see in the wild, because a lot of times you're hunting elk, you don't get to see this. You hear everything elephanting out of there like a just stampede out of there. I mean, but a lot of times you don't see what's taking place or why they're doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
But at those times, I learned a lot of that. So it made you very cautious of not just bumping elk because you think, oh, you can get away with it. No. But as you sit out there with these elk that you are very fortunate to be around, you're going to learn the same things that I did. It's no different, because elk are elk. And it doesn't matter if it was 40 years ago or if it was today, they still react the same.
See, and what I find really interesting about that, Paul, is, I've heard you talk about that in the past, obviously, and there's two people that I could think of that can really kind of intercept or define what an elk is actually saying. And an actual, I don't know, there's a word that I'm missing in my mind, and it's not coming to me. But anyway, there's you and there's Chris Rowe that I've listened to a lot of that talk about the different vocalizations that mean different things, and this is why. And you guys both have one thing in common, and that is you've spent a ton of time, intimate time, with elk and watching them and monitoring them, observing them communicate. And so I think what I was trying to say is I've heard you guys, and you specifically, talk about this for a long time, but I never was able to translate that into what it looks like in reality until I started spending all this time with elk. And just getting into positions where, whether it's through my binos or, there was a couple weeks ago, you might find this interesting. There's an older cow with two younger adult cows, and then there was two yearling calves kind of off in the brush. But the older cow would make a very specific sound that the adult cows would not even acknowledge, but the two calves would move closer. And it was like she was telling them to stick around. You're getting too far. Get back over here. But the adult cows didn't really care. And so I guess that's a long way of saying it's now from what you have said for a long time and how you describe your interaction with the elk and translating that to being a hunter, it makes a lot more sense to me. And I think that you're exactly right when you talk about that. You can go to all the college you want and you could do all the courses you want to do and all the different things that are out there educational wise, read the books. There is no education like sitting and observing amongst the elk in their own, area, their own habitat. It's amazing. And yeah, I'm I'm so happy we live where we live now.
Yeah, and so guys like us that have learned things in the environment that we did, it behooves us to want to share some of this. And so what you try to do with others is you're just trying to shorten their learning curve. You're trying to help them appreciate that they can cut years off of that curve if they just listen to some of the information you can share. And I'm 100% in agreement that boots on the ground is very, very valuable. As a matter of fact, it's invaluable. The part that's tough is it would take these people 20, 25 years to learn what we're trying to share with them right now. So if that can be injected into some of the things that they're experiencing or they're already familiar with, it just helps elevate them right now to make a quick decision in a hunting situation, even if they've never experienced it, to say, oh, this is what I should consider right now because of the guys like myself and Chris that have shed some light on a specific subject or a specific encounter.
Yeah.
And that's what you try to really root yourself into it's the same as golfing. If you're new at golf, and you're 160 yards out and you need a 7 or 8 iron, depending on your swing, somebody could say, hey, you should grab that club because you're reaching for a 3 iron right now. Well, I don't know which one I should use. I've never been in this situation. So somebody can suggest you might want to try this club instead of that one for good reasons. And it may take you a few tries before you understand the distance behind each one. Well, it's the same by using a certain sound or a certain tactic. And everybody out there knows what a golf club is. Mm-hmm. Everybody out there knows what an elk sound is. That's a hunter. And when you look at the big picture, and most guys are hunting not draw areas. We love to, but we don't all hunt them. And that's not what we mostly hunt. We're mostly hunting over the counter stuff. We're hunting public land. We're sharing the grounds with a lot of other hunters. Yep. But yet you see the success rate is at less than 10%, Jim. Mm-hmm. It is. But yet all these guys out there, the majority of them all know how to call cow call and bugle. All of them do. So why isn't the success rate over 90? It's because it requires so much more than that. You have to understand the language. You have to know how to communicate with elk. You have to understand the different cadences a cow may use through the tone or the emotion or the length of the call or the volume. That is the game changer. And it's the same thing with a bull sound. When a bull is trying to send a message to calling a cow toward him, he may just give a short little high pitch and maybe some chuckles. And he may do this 3 or 4 or 5 times as the hunter gets carried away and sits there in one spot and tries to call the bull over. And the bull may get a little bit annoyed, may even get a little frustrated. So he raises his tone, you see, and he starts getting a little bit more aggressive in his tone or of his bugle. And his chuckle may now turn to a grunt, because he wants her to come. And why aren't you coming? So he's getting more demanding with his sound. So that's all he's doing. He's going from a chuckle to a grunt or from a short squeal of a bugle trying to give her a direction. She's not coming as he asked. So he gets a little more demanding in his tone, and it shows an aggressive. You can even get into a challenging type of a tone because he's insistent she comes. And so once you start understanding these different sounds that a bull will use depending on the situation he's presented with, that's when you start taking notice. It's not every bugle sounds the same, but has 5 different messages. Baloney. They all change in the tone or the volume or the aggressiveness of it. And that is what's changing his mindset or the message he's trying to get across for whether it's a bull or cow he's talking with or his group of cows, and that's where it's all at. When guys start understanding that, guys and gals start understanding that the message is being sent through a different tone by the elk or by them using certain sounds in certain situations, that's when they start seeing a whole lot of close encounters, because you're using sounds they expect to hear, and you're doing it on pressured elk where everybody is out there hunting it, but everybody else is just making just standard cow calls, bugles. They think they think the elk should just come trotting their way because they sound like an elk, instead of communicating with them or understanding when an elk is trying to keep them away or they're trying to call them to them. They don't get any of that. They don't understand it. But once they do, it's a game changer for them.
I want to ask you something about that, because that ties into what you were saying earlier with, the success rate is less than 10%. And my feeling is, amongst the 10% of the success rate, like 90% of those people are the same people every year that put a tag or notch a tag. And it's like 1% of that 10% that get lucky every 10 years or so.
That's so true.
So I guess what begs the question out of that, something like that, is what are these hunters doing? Because I really like this topic that you were talking about, we've all heard these generic calls out in the woods, and we're talking public land, over the counter kind of areas. You hear the way Dirk does it. I've heard him do it a few times, but you hear the doodle-doo, doodle-doo, basically, and it's the same bugle every time. You could hear maybe even if they're communicating with an actual bull, the bull is getting frustrated, but they don't change the tone. They don't get any madder. They don't get any nicer. They don't get, nothing changes. And so the bull loses interest, in my opinion. I want to hear you kind of break that down. What are hunters because you've been doing this a long time, and you've had a lot of success. I think correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, you've gotten an elk or two, right?
Yeah.
And so, you come from a place of a lot of credibility on this. From your observation, call wise, what are hunters doing that are just shooting themselves in the foot? Does that make sense?
Yeah, they don't know how to work a bull. I mean, and the sound you're referring to is a yodel, and that's what a bull will do. So, and once in a blue moon, you will hear a bull yodel like that. But I mean, it is so rare. But what he doesn't do is that same guy tries to grunt or chuckle, and they don't sound anything like the bull. That's where they lose it. Anytime you get a person that's yodeling, it's because they're using a bite and blow bugle. They're not using a reed and a bugle. You don't even do that with a reed and a bugle. They're using something where it's attached to the bugle, like an external call kind of thing. I can make one in a second, easily doing it by using an external type reed, which they're like a cow call almost. Bite and blows is what I call them, and that's fine if you have a problem with your palate and stuff. But basically, to answer your question, they don't know how to work a bull. They have no idea how to work it. And so they keep bugling. If bugling is what they're doing, that's what they're doing. And they expect the bull to come running over and cover large distances, from them. When you have to know how to work a bull according to the bull you're working. Okay? Let me give you an example. You have an aggressive bull. Now, what does that mean? So what, he's aggressive? What does that mean?
Yeah.
When I say an aggressive bull, anybody that listens to this podcast, what does that immediately tell them in their head? And I'll tell you what it means to me. An aggressive.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, I think most people would interpret that as, oh, he's a really mad, fired up bull, and he's got a lot of emotion in his bugle.
But why? There's a reason for it.
Because he's got, I know he's got a hot cow, but I don't know if, maybe I'm wrong. Correct me. You're the expert.
No, you're right. He has a hot cow. Or there's two reasons why a bull can get fired up and get upset. Okay. And one of the biggest reasons is he has a hot cow, so he's being defensive. And there's only really two reasons why a bull will be defensive. That's it. You can add anything else you want to the equation, and you're just kind of, shooting for the moon here. But in reality, a bull will be defensive for his piece of property, his piece of real estate that he's claimed his own temporarily.
I'm glad you brought that up. Okay.
Oh, well, he will. He's very defensive over that piece of property. And we're not talking about a satellite. We're usually talking about a mature bull that either has a harem, whether it's 2 cows or 20 cows, it doesn't really matter. He feels the same. It's his piece of property. It's his cows, and he will protect that domain and not let any other bulls come into it. Now, see, that's not the same as the feeding area, and it's not the same as the transition area where he would go from feeding to bedding, from bedding to feeding. Those are not the same. It's the bedding area. That's his domain. That's his area. He will not share, but he will share the feeding area.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. So he will not get super defensive about the feeding area, but the bedding area is a different story.
Unless he has a hot cow right next
Unless
to
he's
him
got a hot cow.
And a bull's trying to come in. Oh, yeah, unless a bull's trying to intervene and take that cow.
Can I ask you something on that? When you're talking about a bedding area and let's kind of take it from the aspect of it's like midday. They've been laying down for a couple of hours or whatever. That is where I struggle with these elk or these bulls that are, they're bedded down and they give you like this real lazy response, almost like a growl, just a, they hear a little locator bugle. I think I asked you this last time. I might just have to go back and listen to that. But
I'm going to remember that.
I know, but for me, it's like for some reason I always struggle with those. Do you know what I'm talking about? Those real lazy. I've got my bugle tube right here.
Oh no,
just that.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, just a.
I always call it kind of the old.
Yeah, exactly.
That's about all he does.
And if you're not really paying attention, you can miss it. And I was hunting this drainage. This would have been 2 years ago, where it seemed like there was one of those on like every finger going up this drainage. And I would get close and they would just kind of go silent, but then I'd move to the next little area and he'd chime off again. Explain that. What?
Oh, he's telling you to stay away. Get the hell out of there.
So it's kind of an ornery get away from me kind of thing.
Oh yeah, but see, there's no hot cows. I can tell you that already. There's no hot cows present. But he's still not going to accept you. Now, what if you had a cow called?
I think I've tried that and
no. I'm not saying to do it. I'm just saying, what if you had a cow called? Then if he gave you any type of a sound, even that one right there, he would have been telling you where they were. Come on over. You see, that's all I'm trying to show you. It doesn't matter, man or woman. But if it's a bull, he basically is not inviting you to come up and join his group.
So,
hang on a minute though.
Oh, go ahead.
Before we get ahead of ourselves, I want to go back to your first question. Your first question was about why aren't they successful? And I'm just going to hit it real quick, and we'll come right back.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did that. Actually,
this is very important, and guys just don't get it. But if you want to start getting close to elk and calling a lot of elk in and putting them on the ground, you have to understand the type of elk you're working. Distance is key. How close do I need to be to a bull that's not aggressive? How close do I need to be to a bull before I can work either one when he is aggressive? That's the note. Everything you read and you hear others talk about, try to get 100 yards. Depends on the bull. I don't care if they're both herd bulls. Makes no difference. When you're working an aggressive bull, you have to get to that 100-yard mark. Why? Because that bull has a hot cow. He's aggressive. He's defensive. He's guarding his piece of ground, and he could be guarding the cows he has. Again, he's bugling his head off. He's aggressive. No question about it. So distance is factor here. You got to get to that inside his comfort zone if you want to kill that bull. Get him in closer. I'm not going to talk about what would I do next, but that's where you got to be. Now, let's say you have the same bull. He's got the same cows, but he's not aggressive. Nothing's hot. You do not have to be at 100 yards, and you definitely don't want to be aggressive with that bull. You need to get more in the 200 to 300 yards away from that bull. Get distance. Do not try to call him as you get too close, because he's not so stupid when he's not worked up like that he knows there's no dang elk right there. So I try to come in and I get in that 200 or 300 yard mark. That is when I will work that bull. Whether I want to work him with a slope, I'm only going to use two things on him. One or the other. I'm going to go to a slow play, or I'm going to go straight to a cow party. How do I know which one I want? If I want to kill him and I have nothing else, I don't want nothing else to come in, I have to go to the slow play, because the slow play will cater mostly, almost in every situation, to bulls. And that's it. If I go to a cow party, I immediately open up the arena for a cow, spikes, rags, or him to come in. You see? And so, but distance is a key here. Guys try to go in and be very subtle, and they at 100 yards, and they start doing these little cow sounds. I'm not saying it would never work, but you're going to pull in the unwanted so many times, and that is where your problem arises. But everybody wants to use their same philosophy, their same calling sequence, no matter what kind of bull they're running into, and they get that distance being the same all the time. And see, this works against them. All they have to do is look at the last 10 times they did it. How many bulls did they get an arrow in or had an opportunity if they would have done it right? Probably none of them, or one. But why not get 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 opportunities? You need to change your mindset, and you need to adapt to the situation you're presented with. That's why I have top avenues of what tactic I'm going to use depending on the bull's mindset and his attitude. And more importantly than anything, where is he? Okay. After 9:30, he's in his bedding area, and that is going to tell me how I can work that bull right there. It's going to tell me everything.
Yeah, I want to back up just a little bit on what you were talking about there. Is there a way that you could explain how you differentiate between a bull that's aggressive because he's got a hot cow versus a bull that's non-aggressive, whether he has a hot cow or he's just kind of, letting you know he's over there kind of thing?
Piece of cake.
Okay.
Piece of cake. Okay. To give you an example on a bull who is aggressive, but he's not aggressive because he has a hot cow. Okay. Remember, bulls will be aggressive for 2 reasons. One, he has a hot cow. The other, he's being defensive over his piece of real estate, which is his bedding area. And it can be a large area. His bedding area means he could be defensive for that area. 500 yards in every direction. Seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Not just 100 yards. It. And so the 500 yards means every time you bugle in that area, he's calling right back to you. And that's a defensive bull. How do I know if he has a hot cow? Other bulls will be there, and they're going to be bugling as much as he is. So you have multiple bulls bugling in an area because they're all competing for that hot cow.
Gotcha.
They smell that airborne pheromone, which is an airborne chemical that a cow will emit, just the same as a female dog. And I'm sure Chris probably has referred to it. But once you get that pheromone airborne chemical through urination and it hits the air, that's what sucks those satellites over there. More than just bugling, because that will go miles out. It goes a long ways if you're downwind.
That makes a lot of sense.
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not making it up.
I say that because when you've got an aggressive bull that has a hot cow, there'd be no reason for him to be making noise because he doesn't want to let other bulls know unless
he don't think that way.
Defending.
He don't think that way.
Oh,
People think that way.
People think, okay.
That's people
this
stuff.
Is why
that's
I get
like
you
saying,
on.
That's like saying you have to wear camo to kill bulls in the archery season. That's people clothes. That's what it is. It makes no difference what you wear to an elk. They could care less. And I've killed elk with everything wearing blue, which they say they see. Big deal, so they see blue. Does it mean they're afraid of blue? No. It just means they see blue. So what? It doesn't mean anything. But my point is that, at that point, wear what you want. But when you're working an elk like that, you have to understand what they're being defensive for. Again, they don't think like people. They, in that mannerism. No, not at all. To say that, what was your point right there that you said?
Basically,
refresh my memory.
if they're bugling, that means they know that there's satellite bulls around there. Otherwise, they wouldn't be. But you said that's wrong. They wouldn't be bugling.
Well, the hot cows bring those in. The hot cows are what's bringing them in. But the bull does not say, "I need to be quiet now because I don't want to attract bulls." They don't even have the capacity to think like that. That's like the satellites coming in and saying, "I need to bugle really low so the herd bull doesn't realize how big I am or could be. I need to make them think I'm a junior." They don't think like that, guys. And why not? Yeah. Because what is the purpose of them standing back at 200 yards and bugling and representing dominance and strength? It's because they're trying to impress the hot cow. They are not trying to talk to Joe Blow, the big bull that they've already got their pecking order down in August, and they already know they can't whoop him. They know him by his sound, his sound, sight, or smell. They all know each other in that area. They're not dumb. They know everybody and where they sit in that pecking order. So when these bulls sit back and they're bugling in a competitive manner, they're trying to demonstrate themselves as a possible breeder bull to the cow or cows that are in estrus or in heat, one and the same. No difference there. They're not trying to challenge the bull and whip him. If they did, and there was a bull that was a formidable opponent, he would enter the arena. He would get in the ring with him. No question about it. And when he did, you would hear a lot of that right there.
Yes.
No question about it. They are trying to compete, and the winner takes all from right there. But that's not what these satellites are doing. They realize that herd bull, when he has a hot cow, he can only mount that cow a half a dozen, maybe 7 times, 8. It depends on the bull. But that cow is in estrus for at least 15 hours, 12 to 15 hours. I shouldn't say at least, but it runs in that realm. 12, 15, 16 hours, she's in heat. Mm-hmm. And when she's in heat, she wants to be bred. She's not married. She will, when that bull is done and he's spent, she will now seek out the next bull that's a possible breeder, dominant, structured bull that she's been hearing for hours over there. She will now pick one. And if you look them up and you look up on RMEF, you will see that it's not uncommon for one cow to be bred by 4 to 6 bulls before she goes out of heat. And so that's what these bulls are doing. They're trying to demonstrate that they should be the next bull that she chooses, because she chooses the bull that's going to breed her. The bull doesn't come and just ransack her and he's going to do what he wants. She can run off and leave him. She doesn't have to sit there. So she chooses the bull or accepts him as the next bull that will ensure that she has a good, strong calf that it can do her hard times, the winters, and everything else that's thrown in her face. This is the animal kingdom. Deer do the same thing. Does want the biggest bucks in the area to breed them, not the littlest forking horns around. So these cows will seek out these bulls like that. So when you have multiple bulls in an area and you have a bull in his bedding area defending all of that, now you have a great spot that you can get in tight and try to call his cow away from him or challenge the bull. Whatever you choose, if you decide to call the cow away, the herd bull knows what you're doing. He knows you're not talking to him. No question in his mind. So what I try to do is, if I have an aggressive type like that and I think I'm not ready to challenge the bull, he's fired up, but he's not that fired up. Calling 1,000 bulls into bow range, I know what I'm listening for. I know exactly how I'm going to work that bull and how I'm going to kill him. And I'll tell you this: if I get in and I decide I got a cow call, I got to call the hot cow away, I'm going to go in there with a special sound that's going to call directly to her. And what am I going to get from the bull? A detrimental response. He is going to tell me to get the hell out of there right now. He's not going to charge me usually on the first attempt. If he does, it's a bonus, but it's rare. Once I call to the cow, I already know the bull's going to fire back with a challenging type of a tone of emotion behind his bugle. I am going to answer back usually with a subtle growl that lets him know to back off and I'm not going anywhere. And usually when I do it, I just kind of go. That's what I do to the bull. And I go right back trying to call the cow out of there. And when I do, this just raises his temperature. He does not like it, and he comes back even fiercer. And now I will go ahead and play the game and throw the challenge out to him. As soon as I do that, I try to call the cow again. And when I do, I already know my next move, and it's going to kill the bull.
Okay, hold on. We've got to break that down real quick, and I want to get right back to what you were just about to say. But can you show us what you mean by you're talking to the cow with one sound, and then you did that growl? And I'm assuming you didn't have a reed in your mouth. You just did that with your tube?
I just did it with my voice, yeah.
Yeah. And I've tried that. I've learned that from you. I learned that from you. So you're making an impact. What's the sound you're making at the cow where you're talking just to the cow and acting like you're ignoring the bull?
Okay, there's 2 ways to do it. And so normally and both ways will work. And sometimes when a bull comes, a satellite comes in, and I'm saying the satellite, and he may be a damn good bull, but he's not the herd bull.
Yeah,
so, you still have to reference him as a satellite until he proves otherwise. But a lot of times they will come in and give 2, sometimes 3 cow calls, and all into a scream, trying to call the cow over to him, all in one note. There is no hesitation to where you think, was there a cow there in a bull? No, it's all one note. He doesn't take a breath. The other one is where he gives just a short growl and a lip ball and a high pitch very quickly. This is directed to the cow. And the bull knows that. You'll watch, if you're cow calling and you get a bull to where he's been trying to call you over and you're not coming, he will finally revert to a sound like that, where he's insistent, demanding, get over here now. You haven't even entered a bull into the equation. This is him trying to call you over. So a lot of times I will go ahead and do that. And if I'm trying to go in and I think, man, this guy's getting fired quick, I don't have to work him too hard. He's gonna answer me back so quick. I can just tell, his mood. And so I will give him a sound like this right here. To the cow now. I'm calling the cow.
To the cow. Yep.
Just like that right there.
Okay.
And he knows I'm talking to the cow. Where I give that short little lip ball in there. I give him just a little bit of and then right into the lip ball and just a short scream. Okay. Again. Okay. And he's calling the cow, not the bull. Now, when the bull comes back, and I know he's going to come right over the top of me as quick as he can because he knows I'm talking to his cow. And I'm not talking to all his cows. All I care about is the one that's wearing the shirt that says I'm in heat. That's the only one I care about. That's the one I smell. That's the one I can set and check there and tell. That's her. And so I've gotten inside the satellite. I'm in this 100-yard or closer range. I want him to come in. I don't want to try to get any closer in most cases because there's so many elk over there. I'm going to get spotted and busted before I can get in there. Busted. So I need him to come to me. And as soon as I do that, he is going to hammer me. He's going to scream. He's going to come and give me something like this. That's what he's going to hit me with, something short, quick, and let me know that I'm not welcome. Get the hell out of here, or else. I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm not going to go back to him. I'm going to go right back to the cow sound. And sometimes, if I don't do that, I might do the one where I'm going. Where you can tell he went all into one note, where the bull is trying to call the cow out of there. He's not talking to the herd bull. And so, and I've watched bulls do this. That's how I learned all this. I watched meow, and he's screaming for that cow, and the bull just come right over the top. Now I'm ready for him. Because as soon as I go into that second, if it takes a third, I'm feeling him out. I'm feeling as he's starting to scream as he broke the distance and he's 15 yards closer. As soon as I know he's made his move a little bit where he is just enraged, that's when I go, as he's coming my way a little bit and stops, even hangs up. That's when I go. And it's like game over right there.
So as
soon as I hit him with that grunt, and I want to see you, I want a visual. Come on over here, you coward. That's basically what you're doing. You want him to come. And it's almost like when a bull does that to you first, it's almost like he's drawing a line in the sand and telling you, don't you dare cross it, because that is the top of the food chain sound that a bull elk can make. Nothing is more extraordinary than that sound. That's the final sound he'll use.
Can you do that again? You had that little bark chuckle thing, and then that lip ball.
I did it's just, I gave a nervous grunt where I'm asking him, I want to see you. I want an identification. Okay. And that's what he'll do to you sometimes. And so I'm just going. So you can see I'm upset. Here's the location bugle. Here's the location bugle.
Yep.
Notice the difference in emotion. Huge not difference, even close.
Huge difference, guys.
It's not even close.
It's so easy to do that too. I'm talking to the listeners. What Paul is demonstrating is the difference in emotion in the two different bugles, and that's, I think, what ties into what we were talking about, knowing the elk and the behavior, Paul. And this is what I learned from you: is you don't just go trotting through the woods, blowing that super aggressive, mean, growling at these bulls out of the blue. You gotta warm them up a little bit.
And that's a good point there.
Yeah. So you're
feeling the situation out.
You're feeling it out. Yeah. I love it.
And that's what you're doing. But in a situation where a bull will be, when you have him in an aggressive nature, and he has a hot cow because of multiple bulls around, this is the tactic that I use. This is what I'm talking about when I say I work a bull. I don't go in and just start screaming for no reason. I go in with a strategy. Okay, I'm going to go in. I'm going to try to call this cow away. I know she ain't coming. He ain't going to let her come. But I am going to go in there like a real elk. Why is that bull coming into 100 yards? Why is he at 80? Because he wants to fight? Hell no, he wants that cow. That's all he can care about is that hot cow that he can smell.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to get in there and call her out of there. And if he comes running at me when I do it, that's great. But most of the time, I got to work him up. I got to hit her. Cole, I wanted you to come in. And then when he comes, I just... And sometimes, I'll really get him fired up.
God, that sound is crazy. How do you do that? That
just with your throat, your guttural, and bringing it up from your stomach.
I gotta try that. I got my tube here.
Well, so sometimes they'll even pant first. There you go.
Did that work? Could
you
hear it? Okay.
Oh,
okay.
Heck yeah, I could hear it.
I love it.
And sometimes if you really want to get emphatic with it, you have to you're understanding what each elk sound represents. As I'll start with some pants first. And because, anytime a bull pants, it denotes excitement, annoyance, or frustration. He doesn't do it for any other reason. So understand what that sound represents, and now you can add it to that growl. You see, if you want to go in first, kind of going,
okay,
kind of a, you see, bulls will do that to you, and so you want to separate yourself.
I love it. I've heard
from
that.
Joe Hunter. And you want to play the game, even though you're going to really raise the bar and start screaming in a minute, you get them. I've had bulls coming in and they're just heaving. They're heaving. They're so mad. And then, man, you just hammer him. Once I get them to that level and I know they're walking, that bull I called in, it's been 3 years ago now, and I've called a lot of bulls using it. But 3 years ago, I can remember calling this bull in for my son. And I was probably 25 to 30 yards behind him. And I could tell the bull from his sound. I had him just screaming. And I'm going to guess he was, at the time, I know now, Paul told me, but I was guessing he was still 100, maybe 115 yards out. I know it's kind of odd. You try to put that 15 yards on, but it's just kind of, when you've been in a lot of elk, you can just tell that's not 100. He's and he was screaming and he did not move after 2 bugles. And as soon as I felt in my gut, okay, this is it. I have to go like this. All I could hear was running. Just stomping, running, as crashing as fast as he could come.
Mad, huh?
Coming right at me. Just screaming. And my son ended up shooting him on a frontal because he came in so fast. He shot him at 17 yards. And, it was a big bull. 345. Big bull.
Kidding. No kidding.
It was
Public land, Idaho.
345 and 5/8.
Oh,
fantastic. And I sucked him in from over 350 yards away. I worked him up, and I kept working him. With the slow plays, how I started. And all of a sudden, he started engaging, and the next thing you know, it was just boom, 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 and he came running across a burn, and Paul saw him running from 300 yards away, and that's where he stopped in that little over 100 yards. And we were just trading screams for a couple. That was it. I already knew, okay, this is it. I got to convince him. And so I basically was telling him, don't you dare cross. And when I hit him with that, he basically hit me with almost the same thing and came in at a dead run. And so if you just stayed with those location type bugles or a bunch of cow calling and a little bull bugle, 9 times out of 10, he'd have never bought it. This guy was no dummy. He's too big to be dumb, but he bought the situation. And actually, I was right near his wallow. There was a wallow there that was beat to crap, and he was pretty muddy himself. I had actually came up, and he had just left that wallow, and I didn't know it, and he was in the proximity. And so having another bull come into his domain like that in the way that I did, and then push him around, and me saying basically, I kind of like this area. I think I'll take it from you. That's what you're really doing. You're challenging, you're pushing him around, and no, he wasn't going to be pushed around. No matter how big I sounded and how great I thought I was, I didn't sound nothing like him. Let me tell you, no man would. He was incredible. But to have him come in and play the game, it's phenomenal.
You're one of those guys I wish, like, when I'm because as you're going through all these different things that you're talking about, Paul, I like it. It puts me in situations that I screwed up, that I shouldn't have, and it's like I wish I could like put you on my shoulder or something, and you could ride around. You could be my little voice in my head. Nope, you're screwing it up, Jim. Back up. Do this, do that, make that sound.
That's where the app comes in.
That's where the app comes in.
This stuff is on the app, man. It's there.
Yep, and I love it, and so I want to. Well, let me ask this before, because you just brought it up, the slow play. I have found the slow play to be extremely effective. But where I screw it up is I'm solo most of the time, and the bull kind of tends to catch me off guard. Like this last season, I had one, I thought for sure he was going to come right in front of me and then kind of turn to come into this small little clearing. This was super thick country. And it sounded like he was coming right towards me, right in front of me. But so I'm actually at full draw, and this sucker somehow pops out directly to my left. But when I turned, I had a bunch of willows in front of me, and I couldn't shoot. And he saw me turn. So that is probably, I want to say that's the third, possibly the fourth time I've called a bow into shooting range, or a bull into shooting range, using that slow play method that I learned from, it was either your app or from the last time you were on the show, where I couldn't get an arrow off because I'm solo, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Do I need to move after going through the slow play sequence? Do I need to move forward? Do I need to, I know you can't tell me what I'm doing wrong because you're not there, but do you have any tips for somebody that hunts solo using the slow play method?
That's exactly what I do. I move. As a matter of fact, I don't just move. I have a predetermined spot to move to before I ever start it. See, you have to remember that when you're working a slow play, this isn't like, oh, everybody get ready, come on. It's not like that.
They come in.
You have all the time in the world. It's no big deal. So it's very common for me to play the role of the shooter and caller. So it's like, where would I put the shooter from right here? And that's how I look at it. And so I'm going to look, okay, I would put the shooter right over here. And so that's an area that I'm going to concentrate on as soon as I go through it, and especially once I get him to respond. Because when you do the slow play right, for me, as many times as I've done it, countless, I don't even know how many between my son and I, we always get the bull to engage. I've never had a bull come in silent. I've had guys come back to me and say, I had bull come in silent. Anything can happen because there's other elk out there as opposed to the one that is there, that you heard or saw going to the timber. So, things like that can happen. It's just elk hunting. But actually, I've never had it happen. I mean, I usually get him to engage. And I think the reason I get him to engage is I really stick to the script. When a person finds elk coming in silent on them, what I have found out in the past is they're doing way too much cow calling. Remember, cow calling is limited. You're only given a couple of sounds. That's it. You plant the seed and you're done until that 2 or 3 minutes is gone, and then you give it a couple more times. That's it. But I find that guys are, they're doing way too much because you know why? They think every bull wants a cow. Well, it's not true. They could care less half the time, or else he'd be just going nuts over your cow call. But he's not. It's like he's not saying anything until you're going through the bull sounds. You're panting, you're glunking, you're raking, you're stomping around. You're kind of giving the old, when I'm giving a moan a lot of times around, when I have a cow, I'm kind of going like a, and bull make those
that's
little
exactly,
moan. And you're just talking to the cow. You're not trying to alert the world. You don't even care if he hears it, but you know he is. And as you're doing these things and you're moaning and you're just, like I say, then you're starting to kind of just. And when I see guys glunt, here's how they glunt. Guys, get the app. Listen to it. They're not going. I see them online. I watch some of the YouTube in there. This is what they're doing. Have you not ever heard a bull glunt?
I've never heard them do it.
They don't do that.
Here's how I do it. Tell me how this sounds. Does that sound okay, or
That's
can you even hear it?
Much more natural. And that's what a bull will do. Sometimes he'll double up, but most of the time they're single. But they're not like this.
Yeah, it's
and
not
that's
a
what I
tom-tom
see guys
drum.
do.
Yeah.
No, and so what happens? It carries over into the rest of their calling. They're too rapid. They're doing too much in a too little time. You need to tone it down, calm down. You're talking to a cow that's 5-10 feet in front of you. You're not trying to do something. Yeah, I don't know what they think.
I don't
They
either.
just get too excited over the situation.
Yeah, and I guess what I was implying, like the bulls that I was referring to, it's not like they're coming in totally quiet, but they're not pissed off, drooling, eyes rolled back, coming, slobbering mad, bursting through the brush. You know what I mean?
No, they're not doing that, but they're still giving you their position enough that you know they're coming.
So
is when I move. That's when I move. Because they're going to commit. They're going to keep coming.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And I would encourage everybody listening, if you don't have the Elknut app to be able to watch the slow play, you've really got to learn that and practice it before season, because it's super effective. The thing is dynamite. But when you say move forward, Paul, are you saying like move forward 40 yards?
Oh, heck no. 15.
15.
I'm
okay.
talking, and when I move, I am moving forward, but not toward the bull. I'm moving left or right. Okay.
So you're trying to get a side shot. Okay.
Yeah. And not only that, once I move, I don't call again. I make him think I'm where the last sounds he heard. And I only do this when I know he's committed. It's like this last year, I brought this bull in through raking. Slamming the antlers. All I did, I was slamming the ass. Not all I did, but that's how I finally got it. And once I knew he committed, that's when I moved. But you see, and that's the key right there. You can tell when he's committing because and most times he starts engaging. He gets excited. You can hear his bugle. And now all of a sudden it's here. And now maybe 4 or 5 minutes go by and now it's here. I already know he's coming. So now all I do is just keep sweetening the pot through the sounds. I know he's still far enough away. I can still move without being detected. And I've already got a spot up there approximately where I want to go. Maybe I can make it. Maybe I can't. But I'm going to get out of that spot where I'm avoiding the frontal if I can, or having his eyes pegged right on that spot as he comes in.
Okay.
And so I'm really trying to go left or right. And what dictates that is which way is the wind going. If the wind is blowing to my left, on my, to my left cheek, that's where I'm going. I'm not going to go to the right.
Sure.
You see, I don't need to. I can go right there because what I find on almost every situation I call in, and I'm not just talking about the slow play, my 4 main things that I employ is a full send challenge. That's what we talked about a lot of. That full send means that hard grunt and the scream as the last thing he heard. Then I got the breeding sequence. Okay. Then I have the slow play. Then I have the cow party. Those are my 4 main ingredients that I will use year in and year out. Yeah, once in a while I'll throw in an advertising, but I don't even care. I can make it work with one of those 4. But what I will tell you this more than anything is nearly every elk that comes in comes the shortest distance. He is not trying to get around me. Neither is she. Cows or bulls, they come right at me.
You're talking. You're talking about the discussion around where they're trying to get your wind and move. Get around.
Nah, they don't even do that. They could care less about doing that.
See,
if an elk is trying to get your wind, you did something wrong.
I can't tell you.
And now they're suspicious.
I can't tell you how many times I've had that debate with people that.
They don't.
I'm sure maybe it does happen. I'm sure it does. Whatever.
Yes.
But I have found, I had a bull at less than 20 yards from me, and I've talked about this dang bull since it happened on about every episode. But my bow got hung up in my camera that was attached to my shoulder. And so it screwed my shot up. Wow. He was in some willows, gave me a 2-second opportunity, and I would have killed him, but I screwed it up because my string got caught. But anyway, point is, the wind was going right at him. He came over the hill, and he's coming down the hill. It's mid-afternoon, and so thermals are going straight up at right from me to him, and he came down looking for me and did not bother to go check my wind, and that happens all the time to me. So I think that there is. I don't want to call it an exaggeration, but when I don't know how to say that without making people think that you don't need to throw caution to the wind when it comes to an elk's nose, but you don't need to sensationalize it either. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. But I wanted to say real quick too, guys, these sequences that Paul is talking about are all on the Elknut app, which is probably the oldest app I've got on my phone here. the slow play, creative cow calling sequence, breeding sequence, blind cold calling sequence, and advertising sequence. So all those are on, and that's all on video too, right? It's within the app.
Yeah, and I'm actually redoing all that this year. I'm gonna have over 20 videos on there this year of explaining a ton of stuff. That's all going to be added to the app on streaming. So you don't have to download them to watch them. You can watch anything you want at any time as long as you have Wi-Fi. But if there's a few of them that you think will apply to your style of hunting or the terrain you hunt, then you can download them separately so that when you're out of Wi-Fi service, they're there and you can watch them at camp or right during the hunt, or you can download them all. But I wouldn't recommend downloading them all because it eats up more server space on your phone. So just use the ones that might be the most important to you. Other than that, most everything else is on there. And once it's on your phone, downloaded, you can watch it, basically anywhere. But there is a whole lot of new stuff. The whole entire format of it is going to change. The information will still be there, but the whole look of it, and we're going to have tons and tons of photos of elk that we've taken, and we're also going to have pages of your elk, of people who have sent us their elk. Only so many, because I have like 5,000 of them. I can't put everybody up there, but there'll be probably a couple hundred here and there, and replace some with new ones and things like that. So, it's really nice to see people's success and how they attribute it to, some of the stuff they already knew and some of the stuff to the app that maybe filled in a small void that they just needed attention, because there's a lot of good hunters out there. I had a guy I talked to just yesterday that said, I've been elk hunting 40 years, Paul, with a bow. And he says, I cannot believe how much I learned from you. I thought I knew a lot. And I said, well, you do know a lot. But we can all still learn something. Yep. And to fill in those little pieces of the puzzle that just might make things click, where maybe we had questions. But at the same time, the app is good. But discussions like this are also very unique, and they're very helpful if people will start realizing where they're making their mistakes. Sometimes it's just a distance. Sometimes it's a solo hunter and they fail to move. They fail to think in their head they must play the role of the caller and the shooter. So having a design spot up ahead where, okay, I know the bull is moving my way. You have to have the confidence that he's going to keep coming, even though you've stayed silent now from where you last moved. He's going to keep coming. You must stay patient. Sometimes they're there in 2 minutes. Sometimes they're there in 15 minutes. But be patient and don't move and root through your pack. Have your bow at ready, your arrow nocked. He's coming in. He's just slipping in now, this last bit. He may even come in, 50 yards and start raking, depending on the situation.
I've had him
and let you know he's right there. Or he may come in and make a sound or looking for you. He may even make a little cow call. You just don't know.
That's funny you said that. I was going to say that.
Well, he does all kinds of things.
Yeah, I had one come in and he was bugling at first, and then as he gets closer, all of a sudden he starts kind of cow calling. He just kind of goes, meow, and that's all he'd do. And he'd stop and look around, and he'd walk a little bit, meow, stop. Yeah, it was the craziest thing, but I screwed that shot up,
it's things like you're talking about right there that unless a hunter experiences it, he didn't know they did that.
Yeah.
And so this is something that somebody learned just really quick right there. It's like a podcast I gave. I was talking to Dan Staten. That's who it was. Elk Shape. He's a great guy.
He is a great guy. Are you guys ever going to go hunting together?
What's that?
I said, are you two ever going to go hunting together?
I don't know. We were going to that one year, but that's when COVID hit the worst.
I remember that.
And blah, blah. That was the beginning of it. And it was new at that time and blah, blah, blah. But no, I'd love to hunt with Dan as long as he allows me to keep up with him.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'd love to hunt with him too.
An animal,
he'd leave me in the dust.
He's amazing. Oh, he would leave anybody in the dust probably. But that's all right. It's not a competition. Once you get out there, and you're working the country and you're working a bull, things do slow down and we would be just fine. I haven't had any trouble keeping up with the elk yet. So, I choose the country. I like the steeper country, the dark timber. Once they get into the area they want to live and be there for that day, you don't have to be a triathlete to get to them. You just have to be motivated, persistent, and physically able to do it. Of course.
You got to be physically. It's gonna obviously it would help to be Dan Staten level, right? But I always tell people, I will get there. I may not get there as fast as some others, but I'll get there faster than some, maybe other people. The point is that doesn't matter to me. I will get where I need to be when I need to be there. And that's all that matters to me. And so that's okay. I guess that leads me to the question. The biggest thing that I wanted to kind of talk about on this episode with you, it's a super unique thing. You posted about it the other day, and it is kind of on the subject of rattling bulls to you. Obviously, this is a technique that's big in the whitetail world. I've used it on whitetails to really good success. I've rattled in lots of little bucks. Or, I'm sorry, whitetail bucks, not, well, some of them were little, Paul. I'll be honest with you.
No, I understand. Yeah. I'm there. I got you.
I've shot big bucks and little bucks. But anyway, the rattling technique on whitetail deer has been effective, and it's always kind of left me with the question as to, why would this not work on elk? If they hear the rattle going on, they're going to get curious. Elk are curious animals. I feel like they're a communal they want to know who's fighting, what's going on over there. I'm going to go check it out. So can you elaborate on that and tell us a little bit about, kind of expand on the post that you made, and talk to us about rattling elk?
Well, rattling is just like, calling elk. It's just another tool is what it is. And sometimes it's the thing that makes the difference. And that's why most of the time, if I'm rattling for bulls, it's like the final stage of the sequence because it's what's needed. Maybe I went through the slow play, and that's what I did last year on this bull. And I had the 4x5 elk antlers that I will carry if I'm going to be the caller or caller shooter. Sometimes last year I was the shooter. And so the antlers did not come out until I could tell through the slow play he was not closing the distance. I had him at it's pretty open, but I had him at about 400 yards, long ways, and I could just hear his bugle. But there was a lot of open country to get up to that knoll. And I know how those bulls are sometimes that, even though it's 250 yards to the knoll, the minute you decide you're going to move and close the distance, he's standing up there behind a tree branch just staring down there, and I've been there a lot of times and got busted. And so I had to hold position, but he gave a bugle probably, I don't even know, for maybe 15 minutes as I went through the slow play, and he would call back. But at the same time, he did not call back like only at the bugle or only at the cow call. It was like he called back randomly on his own. So it wasn't nothing specific. So I was reading him. I'm saying, okay, he's answering. He is responding, but he's not answering, I should say. And because, like I said, I'd been done for something for 15 seconds and then he'd sound off. It wasn't like right after a specific sound. And this went on for maybe 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay, he's showing interest. And it was an evening hunt. He's showing interest, but he's not worked up. He's not curious enough, or I have not sold him enough as a salesman that I do have a hot cow right there. So I'm going to have to raise the ante on this one. And so what I ended up doing, since my son was there, is I sent my son back, and I had already talked to him about this. And so we knew what we were going to do. And so he went back about 80 to 100 yards, like another bull was coming in, and he screamed at me once I bugled. I bugled, panted, did around stuff that I was working through my slow play. And this bull answers, which was my son. And so within 60 seconds, which was our plan, he kept moving up like 15 yards and making his bugle more intense, more intense, more intense. And so was I. And finally it got to the point where I had him come in all the way to me, and I made a few cow sounds in there. Kind of, I actually was getting a little more wild with the cow sounds. Like I was hooking her and holding her. And as that other bull came in, I just slammed the antlers, and I started crashing, and I started moaning and panting and heaving through my bugle and hitting the ground and crashing the antlers. And as I did this for maybe, I'm going to say 30 seconds, all of a sudden the bull bugled and he was like half the distance.
Oh,
and
really?
He just came. This sold him. You see, what did it sell him? That I have a hot cow.
Yeah, you got a hot cow.
Other bull came in competing and is trying to push me around. I'm trying to push him back because I actually had a hot cow there. This provoked that bull all the way down, and here he came all the way. Well, it was a bull that I decided I didn't want to shoot. He was a 6-point, but he wasn't very big 6-point. And so it was on a hunt that was a draw hunt. And so I didn't want him. But
gotcha.
the point is it sucked him right in the rest of the way, right there. And it was so fun just for my son and I to see this bull just coming. He committed all the way down. And he, so it was just cool.
It's super cool. I mean, it's super cool. It's so funny that you brought this up because I've again, it's worked well for me on whitetail. It has kind of worked on mule deer once.
Mm-hmm.
Once I didn't get that buck, but and it just makes logical sense that it would work on elk. So curious if you mentioned you had those antlers sitting there. Can you kind of demonstrate what noise you did with them? And are you just using like some shed antlers you found kind of thing?
No, this is a bull I killed actually. And so
okay.
It's been a long time ago. And it's actually a 4x5 bull. And the reason I picked this one is because they stand maybe 28 inches tall. I'm looking at them right now. They're about 28 inches tall. And on the eye guard area, I cut them off and sanded them down so I wouldn't jab myself,
Oh,
and
good idea.
And so, but the third point on this one is real short. Both of them are only like 4.5, 5 inches. So they make really good area where I can grip my hand like a knife handle and suck it right up to it and not stab myself. But most of the elk I've watched spar around or come clanking into each other, unless they're just monster bulls. Most of the time they tickle each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're testing the waters. What have I got myself into? And most every time you watch bulls that are competing with each other or sparring, you pay attention to this. They're almost the same size bulls every time.
Yeah.
You hardly ever see a little 4-point trying to duke around with a 6-point.
Yeah.
It's just I've never seen it, but I see the bulls like 2 5s, a 5x6. I mean, that's what they're doing. Yeah, they kind of size each other up and then they come in. Mm-hmm. But usually when I start, I'm I'm testing the waters kind of. They're kind of feeling each other, not pushing and shoving. They're kind of like, do I want any part of this? And you notice these are elk antlers. They have a lot more bass to them than a deer antler does.
Yeah.
And so I'll kind of just like they're shoving, pushing, testing, and then I'll go through the sounds. I'll have my bugle right here. I'll have my reed in my mouth, which I don't right now. But I'll even pant through the bugle. I might just. And a lot of times you'll hear a bull starts wheezing as they step back from each other. I'll be clanking the antlers for maybe 15, 20 seconds, and I'll go. Oh, yeah. You'll hear these bulls kind of wheeze. They're not panting. They'll do that too, but they'll go. And so that's what I'll do. I actually have a video of a bull. Oh, yeah, they'll do that. And this guy had gotten a bull. It was fishing game. They had a bull, and they got him in the back of the trailer. You might have seen the bull, the video. It's on YouTube. It's the only one I've ever seen. But I've heard bulls do it as they come in. They get worked up. They got this bull. It's a nice 6-point. And he's backed up, and he's staring out the opening. And as the fishing game guy is walking up to the front of it, that bull's warning him. And he's going. And you can tell that guy's like, uh-oh. It's like he's getting ready to like a real a bullfighter, like he's kicking with his paws, his hoofs, and now he's just blowing. And I've heard bulls do this before. As they get into a competitive spirit and bulls get close, they'll start doing that. And so I'll use sounds like that along with the raking as they come in. And usually when I use the wheezing like that, I hit him harder because now he means more business. As he comes in, it's more of a. You see, there's no more of that little tickling. No more of that. And as I did that bull just started lighting it up, igniting it. And we didn't even answer him. Nothing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Everything was between these two bulls now. And I mean, he came in so fast. But I've done this on several bulls. This wasn't the first one I ever called in. But a lot of times I will use it during a breeding sequence. If the bulls aren't, because I only use a breeding sequence at a specific time. When there's multiple bulls, satellites, and there are usually some good satellites in there, and with a herd bull, and I'm just trying to suck a bull in for the shooter. He's willing to shoot a 5x6. He don't care. It's over the counter. And so I will go through the breeding sequence and then make them think in that breeding sequence that another bull came in. And that's when I'll smack the antlers, letting them know still all the cow sounds are still being in play, as well as the heaving and the pushing and the panting and the glunking. You're doing everything. if you ever watch them, when bulls around a hot cow, it's not uncommon for them to start glunking either. Not even close to uncommon.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm doing that, I'm doing with my mouth now because I'm busy with everything. So sometimes it's like spitting a hair off your lips, kind of going. That's all you have to do. Just dumb thing. Sometimes I'll click my tongue against the roof of my mouth and I'll go, as you know, and it just sells it. Okay. That's all it does. Doesn't have to be super loud. I mean, these elk are right there. They hear every little thing. Their ears are so much better than ours. So as you're going through your demonstration, your display in there, you're just incorporating all these little things that makes it so real to them. And that's what keeps them coming. So when I'm doing all this, you can imagine I'm in a spot they cannot see me. So they have to come into range. If it's by myself, they have to come into a range before they can see the source, or they have to come into range to the shooter where it's not as important where I'm at. I'm still covered. I'm still I'm still secluded. So when I'm integrating it, it's like a breeding sequence. It's like at the end of the slow play. You see, I could even do it on if I wanted to integrate it to a cold calling setup of some sort. It works really good on advertising. It's it's August 30th. You have a bull that bugled down in this draw, and he won't say another sound because it's early. They don't even care about a cow at this time.
Yeah.
But he gave his position away. So I get down in there. I'm trying to get within 200 or 300 yards of him, and I start advertising myself. And I'll just go ahead and sing around, kind of like. Little stuff. Like I'm whining, just little stuff, and keep going. And if nothing happens after literally 10 minutes, I start bringing the antlers. And a lot of these early season bulls will start getting their pecking order like that, and they'll tickle each other. Just ting, 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 ting. Nothing real aggressive.
Yeah, just
and they'll make this little sounds.
Deer do that too.
But the point is it sucks this other guy in. He just has to see, who are these guys? Who are these? Because they know elk in their area by their sound, and they don't know who it is. And if you just keep up the persistence, they just keep coming and coming. And I hardly ever have them engaged. There's no bugling. There's nothing. They just show up, and they just keep coming forward. I mean, they don't have any VCRs or TVs or they can't text one another. And so when they hear this, it just draws on their curiosity. It's an early season thing, and you start clanking those antlers and just make it real. And then I'm telling you, the next thing they do is they just show up. You could sit over there and cow call your rear off, and they just don't even care. They don't come at all. They're already around other elk somewhere because they're herd animals. But the point is that it's another area where you can actually get elk worked up and have them come sneaking in, looking. They want to see you. And so there's different areas. If you're in a fired up area and you're into the breeding sequence again, I mean, you can really work it up with the antlers if you want. Then I just find that so many times I don't have to go to that level. Because by going through all the sounds and working them up with the cow sounds and a couple of contact buzzes where I'm trying to keep my cows together, because the cows will do that as they're trying to, when there's 4, 5, 6 that you're implementing in your sequence of a breeding sequence. A lot of times you'll hear the cow, if some of the elk in the area, even youngsters, are getting a little too far, you'll hear mom all of a sudden go. And that's what she'll do. And you don't have to do it 50 times. You just do it a couple. That's it. And all of a sudden it just makes everything real. It's been 2 years. I don't know if I ever told you this really quick story. I called this bull in for my son, and it was over the counter, and it was just really a good bull. I mean, it is a super nice. I mean, it's a 300-inch bull, really nice. We were no more than a half mile off of a dirt road when I heard him up on the mountain. We were doing some calling just before daylight. And anyhow, we got this bull to respond, and we go in there and I work the bull up, bring him in, and Paul shoots him at 5 yards and kills him. Jeez. So I had left my pack. It was raining really hard, and I left my pack down below. I knew the area really well. We'd killed elk in there before, and it's steep, really steep. And, being 64 at that time, it was just like, I'm going to drop this so I can keep up. And we had 3 setups on it. It's just straight up and bench, straight up and bench, straight up and bench. And we killed him on one of the benches when we finally caught him. And so I go down and get my pack, and I come back up. And when I do, my son is saying, he's shushing me. And he's sitting right next to the elk. And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, his cows are trying to call him back up. And I go, what? I didn't hear anything when I first went up there. He says, there's like 6 of them. They're maybe 50, 60 yards above. It's real thick. We couldn't see him.
Oh, wow.
And they're trying to call the bull back. And so I sat there with him, and he told me, and all of a sudden I could hear,
kind of that growly
I
mew.
didn't make the actual sound. Here's the sound they were making.
Okay.
They kept dropping their note. Instead of just a normal, kind of
The meow.
Instead of that, they were very vocal, and they kept going, dropping the note. And after about a minute of it, one of the cows went like this.
She's getting frustrated.
She was giving the contact buzz, demanding him to get up there. Come on, get up there. And so we're just sitting there. We sat there for, I don't know, close to 10 more minutes. And every 2 to 3 minutes, that one cow would do that. She hardly ever did it compared to the cow calling. And she just kept hammering that contact button. And we're sitting there trying to, with our hands over our mouth, just laughing like, what a perfect example of how the cows are trying to use like the short regathering mute. I think Chris calls it an assembly mute. I've always called it a regather mute for 25 years. Yeah. And she drops that note. That's what they were doing until that one cow would come in with the contact buzz. And they were trying to encourage that bull to get up there. Well, behold, he's sitting there dead. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, after about 15 minutes of this, a bull comes in above him, about 200 yards away, and he screams that short lip ball roundup for them to come on up. And as soon as he hit them with that, they turned around and started giving the sound that they normally do. I could hear them all going, real rapid, and they're running right toward him. And I was like, oh, why can't I have a tag? I had already killed the bull. And if I had a tag, I'd have sucked that bull right in. I would have called that bull in so fast. I knew exactly what to do with him.
Didn't your son have a tag for that second bull?
My son is the one that shot the bull.
Oh, he is the one. So you didn't have a tag.
I called the bull into 5 yards, and Paul shot it.
That's what I thought. Okay, so
I had already killed the bull.
I got an idea.
I went to get my pack.
I got an idea, Paul. I feel like you need to adopt another son. And I'm your man. I'm your man. Like, I'll go with you. And
there you go.
I'll make sure you never leave your pack.
That's a good one.
God, that's
but anyway,
awesome.
that was a great
awesome
learning
story.
experience.
Yeah, for sure.
For us, as well as, cementing thoughts in your mind and just watching, how that sound was used. Because so many people will claim it's an estrus call. It's an estrus, but it's not. It has nothing to do with it. I've had elk make that sound as they were calling other elk around. I'm sitting out there in May and June, and I can hear them using that contact buzz out there. I actually have a couple videos of it that I have where where cows were using this sound well outside of breeding seasons, just to show people that it's just not me saying it. I want you to hear them using these sounds in situations where they're trying to bring the group back over to them. Or in my instance, when one of the ones I was out there, it was probably June 5th or 6th. I was watching some cows. I had snuck right in, and I had probably got in within 30 yards of them, and I had just been sitting there. And I got kind of cramped, and I waited for them so they weren't watching in the area I was at or looking kind of casually that way. And I moved, and when I did, I looked to my left. There was another cow standing there. I never even saw her. I didn't even know she was there. And as soon as I did, she froze up and just stared. And of course, I'm trying to look like a bush, which didn't go for very long. And all of a sudden, she just started hammering that sound, just but rapid and fast, loud. And when she did, every elk out of there exploded, and she ran. It was like barking, but she wasn't barking. She was just hammering that sound long. She was going.
So you're putting your voice. I want to try that real quick. And
just
see
voice inflection.
Does that sound right?
I mean, that's close. Like if you're doing a cow call, it's kind of going. then she goes, and so she's going, kind of buzzing it. Yeah, exactly like that. And look on the app; it's on there. You'll hear cows making that sound.
All right, so you guys listening, this is the episode that you guys take your call while you're driving to work or back from work, and you just kind of mimic these sounds and pause it as you need. Now, the only thing I would say is don't try to rattle antlers while you're driving. But
yeah, really.
But I better throw that disclaimer out there. But the rest of it is totally doable while you're driving. So I love this stuff. Yeah, that's awesome.
And anyway, so, you put all that stuff together, and the next thing you know, you're inadvertently learning the elk language and enjoying yourself as you're doing it. And the cool thing about, as you practice sound, this sound, this sound, this sound, you're understanding the message being sent, whether it's by you or the elk. But as you understand the message you're sending, you're going to put the right tone and emotion behind it. You start saying, oh, this sound is meaning this. And so as you practice it, you can't help but put the right sound behind it, because you're now understanding, I'm just not making an elk sound. I'm actually sending a message when I'm going to use this sound or this sound or this sound, or the same with the bull sound. If you're going to use a location bugle, a challenge, or the lip ball where you're calling a cow, as you practice those sounds, you're putting meaning behind it because you understand what you're saying with it. And that makes your practice so much more enjoyable, and it's easier to polish it up. Call into the app on that recording feature and then listen to the real elk making the sound.
Yes.
And that's how you're going to polish your own tones up. I use it myself.
Yes,
I honestly do. I go on there and use those sounds and try to be as realistic sounding as possible. And you're going to find that when you're using those cow sounds or the contact buzz, the softer the latex, the easier it is to make that sound. So if you have a stiff latex call, you might want to, and it's great for bull sounds. It may not be the best choice. I find that if I get something that's a little bit an all-purpose reed, then it works best for me.
Let's take a quick break to give our show sponsors some well-deserved love. Let's start with Scree Extreme Mountain Gear. High-performance hunting attire and gear. Scientifically tested camo patterns. Complete layering systems. And in my opinion, the finest merino wool products to keep you warm, dry, and comfortable. It's all backed by a great company. Some of my personal favorites in the Scree lineup are the hard scrabble pants for early to mid-season, and then as it gets colder, I switch to the Kodiak pants for late season. The Bridger glassing mitts are like game changers, and I love the Nebo rain gear. Scree offers great packages on the website as bundles, like the Elk Bundle, that will completely outfit you for your favorite hunt. Oh, and my favorite part? You won't need to refinance your house to get outfitted. Try the starter bundle for less than $500. It's an insane deal. With the VIP sizing guarantee, you can exchange something that doesn't fit for free. I just had to do this for something that I got my wife. It was a little big, so I just sent it back. They covered the shipping both ways and exchanged it for the right size. So go to screegear.com and at checkout, use promo code The Western Huntsman for 15% off and free shipping. Phelps Game Calls, one thing that I love about companies that are born out of hunting is their story. Like Phelps Game Calls, the American success story that walks us through how something started small and grew into something big. Like Phelps, he started this company kind of as a hobby in his garage in 2009. Now, a little over a decade later, Phelps is one of the premier hunting call companies on the planet for good reason. They're the most realistic calls on the market, and that is saying something. Check out the AMP lineup. For predator calls like the 3-pack POR 123 or the Fawn in Distress, check those out. Turkey calls, get a diaphragm, a pot call, or a box call, and a complete line of waterfowl calls. Hit up the website and at checkout, use promo code Huntsman10 for 10% off. Phelps Game Calls, get them close. The Elk Collective. The best investment for hunting success is what's between your ears. Having elk hunting knowledge is what separates those who succeed every once in a while against those who notch tags every year. There's a very fine line there, and there's a perfect amount of time if you're listening to this now to get through the entire course before September. Improve your chances with a virtual course of over 140 videos that cover things like how to get elk tags throughout the West, scouting and e-scouting, beginner to advanced elk calling, gear, fitness, nutrition, shooting processes, hunting scenarios, strategies, and tons more. They've got some very big names on this platform that give you their personal expertise as you go through the course. It's the best way to make you the best elk hunter as you get into the woods. So go to theelkcollective.com and use promo code The Western Huntsman for $20 off. It's normally $89, so when you use my promo code, it's going to be the best $69 you've spent on elk hunting, and I guarantee you it's worth every penny. Check it out, guys. Hoffman boots. Let me give you guys a piece of advice from a dude with many miles on his feet. Never skimp on quality hunting boots. Hoffman Boots is a fourth-generation, family-owned company based in North Idaho. I've been sporting a pair of Hoffmans for close to a decade. Particularly, I like the Hoffman Explorer in the 8-inch. In my most humble opinion again, Hoffman offers the most comfortable hunting boot that does the least amount of damage to my feet after several miles on the mountain. Very little break-in period on these boots, by the way. I took them right out of the box and went on a crazy elk hunt, not even a blister. For hunting, they have the Explorers and the Summit boot offered in insulated and non-insulated. And ladies, check out the new women's Hoffman Explorer 400. They also carry lineman boots, winter pack boots, logging boots, and hiking boots. Get totally outfitted at hoffmanboots.com, and at checkout, as you know it's coming, use promo code, all caps lock, Huntsman10 for 10% off. Last but not least, Tacticam. If you're interested in self-filming your hunts, whether for memories or making hunting content, check out the Tacticam products like the Spotter LR, Tacticam 5.0, and the Film Through Scope system, all of which are available at thewesternhuntsman.com, which helps support our fight against the anti-hunting movement. But my favorite is the Tacticam Reveal cell cams. I use these cell cams all over my property, and I'm like obsessed with monitoring the wildlife in real time with these cameras. They not only text me instantly when a buck or a bear is cruising through, my reveals make for excellent security systems. I know when the FedEx dude is delivering packages way down at the bottom of our driveway. And I also know if some knucklehead shows up to try to steal them. I know when someone's trespassing or if I have the kind of wildlife roaming around that I don't want, like a coyote. And I quickly react with my cat-like reflexes. Great for trappers, great for hunters, security, anything, guys. Check it out at tacticam.com because I don't have the reveals on my website right now. Let them know I sent you. Tacticam.com. Let's get back to the show. Here we go.
There's a lot of good calls out there. You can't go wrong with so many good manufacturers out there. But if there are some of you, if you're using the Phelps one, the Maverick, all those are really good calls.
Yeah,
Rocky
I like
Mountain.
the Maverick.
There's a lot
and
of
the
good
pink
ones.
and the gray amp from Phelps are I think do exactly what you're talking about. They're not too
all-
stiff.
a
They're
lot
not
of
too
those
light.
will do
Yeah.
that. Exactly.
Let me. I know I'm keeping you a little long here, Paul. Let's go through these lightning round questions. Is that okay?
Okay, let's do that before we conclude then, yes.
Okay, awesome. So, because you don't
Make
know
them
me
easy.
you don't know me very well, but I know you well enough
Okay.
that you and we can keep this going for 3 or 4 hours, and so I want to be considerate of your time.
Okay.
So lightning round number 1. Again, these can just be super quick answers. What changes strategy-wise from week 1 of September to week 4 of September?
The bulls are more cowed up as it gets later. And so I can get way more aggressive with elk. Usually from the 8th on, I can, my mental aspect gets much more aggressive. I'm much more subtle early on.
Okay. I like
way
it.
more
Yep.
cow parties.
Way more cow parties. Okay.
Early on.
Good deal. So, I guess later in the year, would you say, or not year, later in the month, would you say it's easier to kill a herd bull later in the month while they are herded up? This is not part of the lightning round. That just kind of popped into my head.
Well, most bulls are going to have cows by the 8th anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean by later in the month. So once they have cows, remember, a bull can become more defensive because he has cows, or he can become equally as defensive for his piece of territory. So it just sweetens the pot is all it does when you have a bull being defensive for the cows he has. Or I prefer a bull with cows anytime.
Me too.
But I also prefer hunting mountainous country. So mountainous country and bulls with cows are a big difference than a bull with cows and hunting flat country or rolly country like Arizona, parts of Nevada and Utah. there's mountainous country in those areas. So if I hunt those areas, I prefer the mountainous areas as opposed to more open terrain where you would do more spot and stalk. I do way less calling at that country than I would in more mountainous country, even though I'm in the same state.
That makes a lot. Well, yeah, I knew you and I will get
try
along.
Try to be aggressive with the bull on flat ground.
Yeah, exactly.
They see you 300 yards away. I mean, it just doesn't work.
I know it really doesn't.
You're better to keep your mouth shut at that time.
Dark timber.
I'll take the mountains every time. The mountainous country, the cover, the timber,
yeah,
the pinyons and junipers. As long as I have cover, I can work them.
Dark timber is my best friend. So, okay, lightning round number 2. Many hunters are happy with a spike. How would you, as Paul Medel, the Elknut, if you were happy with just getting a spike, walk us through super quick. What do you do to call it a spike, real quick?
Oh man, that's a piece of cake, man. That's a cow party situation all the way.
All right.
So I'm gonna go with a cow party with no bull involved, and it's a spike's dream, where he's not worried about being pushed around by a bull that may be in the group, so he's not apprehensive to come in. As a matter of fact, the cow party will call in cows and spikes faster than any other method around by far. And in the app right now at this point, it's called the Creative Cow Calling Sequence. I'm going to change it to Cow Party come June. There'll be a new name for it.
Okay.
And there'll be a video on how we do it. But the Cow Party, and I don't just mean a few cow calls either. You need to go in there and see what we're doing with the cow party. It's an extremely unique situation. That is number 1 for killing cows and spikes. Absolutely.
Guys, go get the freaking Elknut app. I mean, come on. It's what is it? $5, $10, something like that?
It's $9.95.
$9.95. Yeah. I mean, I spend
it's loaded with stuff.
Yeah, I mean, come on, go get the app, guys. I highly recommend. You guys know me. If you're listening to this, you know that I promote all of this stuff. I'm a big fan of the Elknut app. I'm a big fan of the Elk Collective and the Blue Collar Hunting virtual course from the Elk Bros. All these courses that you get, Row Hunting Resources, the Elk Calling Academy, all of them. I'm a big fan of. But the Elknut app is a lot of information packed into one app, and it's got that exact thing. So if you're somebody that is just, you're happy with getting a spike, there's nothing wrong. Spikes eat very well. I will tell you, spikes eat great. And you just want to go get a spike, jump on the app, figure out the cow party. I want to cover that again. Right now it's called the Creative Cow Calling Sequence. There it is, right there.
You'll see it right on the app.
Yeah, it's right there in the app. When you guys get in the app, you'll go to sequences, and it's under there. And then you can go back to the sounds, and that's where all the recording is. Anyway, don't mean to make this a big promo for the app, but I do love that app. I've been using it for years. Okay. Question number 3. If you were limited to 2 hours of hunting in a day, doesn't matter what time of month right now, what 2 hours does the Elknut pick?
9 to 11.
9 to 11.
Heck yeah, and a full moon.
So that's interesting, because one of the questions...
Number 1.
Yeah. Full moon hunting, what is your take? Do you hunt or do you take the day off?
Yeah, right. That's when I kill all my elk. Full moon, man.
People rag on the full moon, Paul. They're always throwing rocks at full moon hunting, but I love it.
Those are the same people that rag on bugling and calling. You can't call elk.
Yeah.
And you can, because they don't know what they're doing. So, they think elk are just asleep the whole time when it's a full moon. But you see, you're talking to somebody here. The question is for me. All I need to hear is one bull bugle. That's it. One bugle. I don't need
that's a dead bull?
5 bulls. I don't need 100 bugles. I just need one. Mm-hmm. And during the full moon, they're very active. Nocturnally, they're at night. And so once I hear a bull in an area, I know he's there, and I am going to attack. I'm going to try to kill that bull. And so a lot of times when there's not a full moon and they're not rutting yet, you still don't get a lot of action at night. Nothing like a full moon. And the full moon lasts for such a long period, easy 5-6 days on each side of it. And those are my absolute favorite times to find elk, because once I find them, that's when they're in trouble. Half the work is trying to find them. And what you do with them after you find them, that's your meal ticket right there.
Okay. No, I love it. Okay, so you actually mentioned one word that leads into another question. Number 4 is raining. Continue to hunt or take a break?
A downpour, take a break. I mean, if it's ridiculous, if it's going to wash blood, I'm not out there to be miserable. But at the same time, we've killed a lot of elk during rains and intermittent rains off and on. Carry your rain gear. But if I get up and it is absolutely a deluge, no, I'm not going to go out there and hunt. And I've actually sat 2 days in camp where the rain was so bad. I mean, it was ridiculous. Not even the elk would get up. So, that's just the way I would do it. I'm concerned about a blood trail, and so, but I bet you we've killed at least 15 elk in the rain between my son and I. So we do hunt the rain, but we won't hunt a deluge of rain, where it's ridiculous.
If it's an absolute downpour, you can't hear them anyway. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's dangerous out there, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. Number 6. This is like a multiple choice question here. What is most important? A, shooting skill. B, calling ability. C, expensive gear that you have to take a second mortgage out on. Or D, elk knowledge.
Well, there's some importance behind all of them. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. That's a tough question, in all honesty, because I see 3 answers.
That's what I do. That's what I do. I give the tough questions, Paul.
Yeah.
I mean, you're exactly right.
You have to let me think. I don't pick shooting ability as number 1 for me, because I hunt dark timber and my average kill is 23 yards for all the elk that my son and I have both taken. So shooting ability is top pin, and although it's important, don't get me wrong, it is. But elk knowledge would probably be my number 1 pick. Calling is very important, but I put elk knowledge and calling as 1. I don't put one over the other.
That's a good point. I should reformulate that, because
that's how I would see it.
Yeah. Because
for me,
if you have the right, you could be a world champion elk caller at the RMEF Foundation, but if you don't know behaviorally how that applies to the behavior of the animal, it doesn't mean anything, right? And so I think I'm gonna rephrase that question in the future. Okay, moving on.
But the expensive gear would be down to way below 0.
Yeah,
and I don't mean nothing.
Yeah, and I'm not ragging on expensive gear. I love it and everything, but I mean, I've been pretty effective in $20 Walmart tennis shoes in my life, and I'm not opposed to it. So, totally agree with that. Most critical piece of gear outside of your weapon to be successful.
What's between my ears?
Okay.
I mean, what's in my mind? I mean, I think, it's so easy to say boots or, my camo, stuff like that. But seriously, if you're talking about hunting elk, I think most of that is a given. Without a doubt, the most important piece of gear for me, it's my calls by a mile. My calls are the most important thing to me. I'd rather leave my bow in camp than my calls. Okay. And if I was to be more diversified with it, it would be my bugle as my number 1 tool if I had to choose. But my bugle would be my number 1 tool. Of course, reeds allow me to do anything with it. But if I had to choose between the two, bull sounds are what kills nearly all our elk, well and above. I would say 80% of our elk die from bull sounds, and maybe 20%. Less than that, 10% would be cow sounds, and 10% would be both. But bull sounds by a mile kill them.
Okay,
pull them in close.
I feel like you're
more like, than you wanted to know.
No. You're like telepathic. You're because it's funny. Number 7 or 8, I can't remember which one I'm on. If you had to choose one, bugle or cow sounds, and so
it'd be the bull sounds.
Yeah, bull sounds. So that answers that. Yep. Okay.
And mostly because I'm after 5 and 6 point bulls or bigger. Okay, if I was after cow party, would be more for rags, spikes, cows. Because see, some areas people that's all they can hunt. So then I would fall back into that realm. But when hunting the over the counter units that I hunt, I'm usually after a 5 or 6. No usual about it. That's what I'm after. 5s and 6s because it's so heavily hunted. You're not just going to run around shooting 300-inch plus bulls. It's just hardly ever happens.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of pressure here.
For sure. Number 9. Which week of September do you feel that elk are most responsive to calls?
Third week.
Third week, so 15th on kind of thing?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, that could lead to so many different discussions because I've had...
It's the third week, though.
This last year was such a weird year. What was last season like? Was last season 2021, was that an off year or like a weird year for you in terms of how the bulls reacted or responded behavioral wise? Or was it just me and a few other people I hunted with?
It was the same as normal. I've done it for 40 years, and I didn't see anything unusual about it at all. That's why your answer is important to me. Actually, you answered the 10th question anyway, and I need to maybe it's your tactics of use.
That's what I was going to ask. So
I'm trying to locate. How do you locate? You got to be very versatile when you're looking for elk.
What is your opinion about that, though, Paul? Like you said, you've been hunting elk for 40 years. I've been hunting elk for a long time, not 40 years. I'm a little over 40 years old, so I'm not a spring chicken, but I don't have that kind of experience. So, you hear a lot out there. Well, this year was an odd year, and I'm totally guilty of saying that. I've had years where I just felt like something was different, and then the next year everything goes back to what I've always known. And I don't know what that is, and maybe it's me, or do you have an opinion as to some years maybe because it's dry, or maybe there's a lot of smoke in the air from fires, or maybe the moon phase is just a little off, or the solar planets are aligning in some weird, Pluto's lined up weird or something. You know what I mean? Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I'm not a scientist or anything, but there are years, no doubt, that the elk seem a little more quiet, even though you feel they're there. But are they there? What's the sign like? What's the pressure like where you're hunting? I mean, is there an increased activity of a lot of hunters? Do you have a lot of predators? Like here, we have to deal with mountain lions and wolves, a lot of bears, the wolves being the worst. But we run into, there's a lot of people pressure too. I see, for me, that seems like that's what most people's problems is that a lot of people are working elk. And if you find elk, are you hunting them consecutively day after day? See, I won't do that, because if I blow it, I already know if I go in the next day, they may be responsive, but there's no way I can call them back in. I already blew it.
Mm-hmm.
They're very aware of me. So, I mean, and like I said, once I get on a bull, if I hear one, I mean, I'm doing everything in my power to kill that bull. I don't take it for granted. I'm not nonchalant saying, oh, I'll get into 3 or 4 more later on. But to put your finger on why some years are tougher than others, it's elk hunting.
Yeah,
that's supposed to be challenging. It's supposed to be a tough challenge. And there's a reason why there's guys out there that have killed a lot of elk. They, and they do it consecutive year after year after year. It's because they accept the challenge of tough times and when there's good times. I can remember one specific podcast I had. It's been several years ago with Mark Warnke. You'll see him. He's on IG. Really nice guy. He does the goat thing.
Oh,
he goes all over.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
And I remember him asking me one time that he was hunting in areas where they did get into some elk, but it wasn't like past years, and it was really tough. How would you work those elk? I mean, what would you do? I don't even remember my response at that time, but I'm sure if I was asked that same question today, if I'm having a tough time, but I know there's something out there, I can't be more enthusiastic to recommend a cow party than anything. It's just incredible until guys experience how deadly it is. And especially if you're having a tough time and you're just trying to pull elk in. This will pull elk in. You just have no idea how powerful it is. It's ridiculously awesome. And, last year I did it on the 2 times I did it with a couple of guys and myself and my son. We called in 7 bulls and they never made a peep. But you have to sit there and wait for anywhere from 10 to 30, 40 minutes. But they just show up, and every one of them came in under 20 yards. But they come in. That's the point. And I also had John Stallone. He's on Instagram. He called me up and he said, Paul, he says, I'm in Idaho right now. There's bulls around me and I can't get them to do anything. Nothing. And I said, go to the cow party. They're going to come in. Just go straight to the cow party. I explained to him how to do it real quick. He has the app, but I still, I talk out. And I heard from him later, and he said, I set up, and on the very first try, a bull came straight into us. He didn't kill it because when it came in, he totally caught us off guard, and he just walked right on top of us.
I know how John feels.
And we're like, we can't even knock an arrow and shoot him. He's just right there. Where'd he come from? But that's why when I tell people about the cow party, and of course he was saying, he was with some hunters that were newer, and they just kind of took it for granted. And John is much more serious hunter. He's very dedicated.
Yes,
this guy, he's a diehard. I hunted with John one day.
Did you?
And John is just super nice.
Yeah,
and this guy
he's
has more
dude.
Energy. He's like the energy rabbit out there, that battery rabbit guy. He can go. Let me tell you, he's a great guy.
Yeah, he is a great guy.
He tried it, and man, it came right in. And so I'm just trying to show you that you get into area and you feel there's elk. And the thing is with the cow parties, you can pull elk in a half a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be so confident that they're going to show up. And so when we were doing it, we would hear a bull way off and nothing else was talking. Nothing. I don't care what we did, what we said. We just tried to get within a quarter mile of them because elk are herd animals and go straight into the cow party. And once you do it, and it usually lasts around 10 minutes, your whole system of start to finish, and then just a little cow call every now and then, it lets them know you're sitting there, you're bedded there, and here they come. They just start filing in. And I mean, you can sit there and 4 or 5 elk will come in, cows, spikes, and whatever, and wait, and more will come in from another direction. They just will show up. And so if you're having a tough time, let the elk do all the moving. And yeah, there is going to be those years. The elk are there and it's like the cows aren't even coming into heat hardly in your area. And then all of a sudden you'll have a burst where they will. But a lot of times when guys are hunting, they hope to fall into those parameters where there is a lot of rut fest going on. But you have to still be effective with your tools and your means of use, even if you're not in those stages. You have to still be able to hunt elk when they're being quiet. And that's the key to consistent success, because who doesn't want to be out there, Jim, when they're screaming all the time? We all want that. But there's going to be those times they're not, but you can't give up. That's when you go to a tactic where you're drawing on their curiosity more than anything, because you don't really know where they're at. And you got to pull them in. But man, you got to have your head on a swivel, because they will show up out of nowhere so quiet. And once you have it happen, and you do have some positive results, whether you get them or not, it just, it behooves you to do it again and again, because it can work. So yeah, there are those times, but I don't think last year was one of those times. I mean, it seemed like everything was really good and it was pretty normal. That's what I would say. I didn't see anything unusual, but it could have been your area. Maybe there's a lot of pressure over there. I don't know.
We had one of the areas that I've hunted for a long time has had a significant increase in pressure for sure the last, since COVID. I used to be the only one up there. Anyway, I moved on. I found another area where I am the only one up there, and I had a ball. I had a great season. I had a ball.
Well, good.
But it just something seemed like I'll give you a good example. 2 seasons ago, it seemed like every elk that I had an encounter with would do this crazy chimp-like chuckle every time. Where this last year, I didn't hear anything chuckle. Nothing was chuckling. And so I don't know if that was just circumstance, coincidence, just whatever. It is, like you said, it's elk hunting. It's never the same thing. There's always different scenarios that are taking place. It's always a challenge. It's always, elk are individuals. They have individual personalities. And you just, it's just I don't know how to explain it. I think that's why people like you and I love elk hunting. It's never a routine. You know what I mean? It's just always a challenge, and there's always a mountain to climb and a challenge to overcome, and it's just always different. And there's just all these new things constantly coming at you. I'll never forget last year this giant growler bull that I could just barely see the tops of his tines down in this really old wallow. Have you ever seen one of these like 100-year wallows where it's deep and it's just real beat up? This thing's been there for season after season after season. And this old bull owns this wallow, and he has had, because of where it's at, a lot of pressure, and he is no dummy. And I wasn't about to fool him. I bet you could probably get him. I can't. I don't have that skill. He was way too smart for me. But I'll never forget the time I had trying. And he's just got a super unique bugle. Anyway, all that's why we love elk hunting, right? Am I off base?
No, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I would say come into play like that, that intrigues us. And yeah, when we so-called fail at something like that, I think it builds us up even stronger, knowing that these elk really aren't that dumb. I mean,
yeah, they're not dumb.
They're very, very smart and cagey, and especially pressured elk. Even though they may be in an unpressured area, they probably were in one and got pushed to that secluded area. So, trying to pick a bull like that, sometimes it's more like an ambush, almost trying to figure out his destination areas. But I do find that, no doubt about it, that a lot of times you can call that bull in, but you only got one chance. That's it. If you don't kill him on your attempt, you probably will never get another chance on him that year. You have one chance to kill that guy, and you got to make it right. You got to make it work. And so a lot of times it doesn't happen like that, but we keep going back after him, and we don't get him. No way. I mean, it has happened to all of us. It's because he gets educated that quick. He didn't get big like that. You've heard it 1,000 times because he was dumb.
Yeah, he's big for a reason. Yep. Yeah,
but those elk are killable, especially if you get right in their domain. I mean, and other things, if he's that deep, it's hard to bring a tree stand in, or if you're going to say, I'm just going to get on the trails he's using. There's all kinds of little things, but I'm a caller. I'm going to try to call him in. And he probably could give a rat's ass about a cow if you want to know the truth. You're probably going to have to just get in there and display in his area. I mean, on top of him.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how a lot of.
I'll bet you that's what I need to do to that one I was just telling you about, that big growler bull down at that 100-year wallow. I call it. I don't know how long the wallow's been there. I just always call it the 100-year wallow.
Well, I know what you mean, because we did get into a growler last year. And I mean, he growled and he growled. He never ever bugled.
Yeah, they don't bugle. They just growl at you.
And that's what he would do until I finally got him into his bedding area. And and my son, he was going to shoot, and so I was calling. And this was like September the 3rd, and he was just. That's all he would do. And I heard him from a long ways. And we finally got over there, and I ended up. I screwed my son. I mean, I really did. Kind of like you screw the pooch type thing. We made our way. We got this bull low. We heard him low. We ended up following this bull, and all of a sudden he went straight up. We had to go up over 2,000 feet, and I knew the area. We've hunted it before, and he kept going up, 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 and so he could hear us. It was so thick with willows that we were bushwhacking. And we were on our stomach in a couple of areas going straight up the mountain. It took us almost an hour. And by the time I got within maybe a quarter mile of him, I knew he could hear me. And so all I did was just moan on the bugle. I just moaned. And he'd answer almost every time.
With the
and
growl?
We kept going up.
He'd answer with
the same growl. He didn't sound like that. I was me doing that.
I know.
And I went, but he could hear me, and I knew it. And I didn't use no cow calls. All I did was let him know I'm making my way up, and all the way up to the top. We finally made it. He was right below the top, probably a couple 100 yards, and it kind of plateaued out where there was actually some sagebrush, which we have like none of that where we hunt, but we were so high up on this mountain, and it was kind of a benchy area where there was a slope that went up maybe 10 yards. And I knew that bull was right up ahead. He was probably up there still another 150 to 200 yards from where I last heard him, but he hadn't moved on that entire, ascent to get up there. He never moved. He was right there. And so I got my son up there and I said, just get right on this edge. I'm going to stay below and I'm going to call him in. I said, all I'm going to do is just advertise it. He's not going to like this bull in his area. So I started to bugle from my moan. I moved my bugle into a slight whistle. Then I reversed it from the whistle, kind of a bugle, all the way back down to the moan, and I kept playing, and he would just groan. And then all of a sudden on I'm starting to rake. This went on for probably 6-7 minutes. And all of a sudden he screamed a bugle at me. And I already knew, right? He was telling me to get out of there. I mean, It was definitely no doubt about bugle. I went ahead and hit him right back with the same one. He hit me back. I cut him off. And now I can hear he's closer. I'm like, man, he's got to be right on top of my son. He's just right there. And we had already moved up that mountain a couple of times trying to call him in, like a couple of setups. But this was the one where I thought it was going to be. And so he moved up a little bit. And so I moved up a little bit. This went on a couple of times. And so I figured this was the last one. That was it. And so I'm still below my son. I can't see him. He went up on that little edge there. Now I can't see him. And I hate that when I can't see the shooter.
Yeah.
But it was just that type of an area. I had no choice. I went through my little scenario still. And now I'm picking up the tempo big time. And he is just screaming bugles along with his growl. So I knew I had him going. And all of a sudden I could tell his bugle went further. It was like he was back another 50 yards. And I'm like, crap, he's going to move again. So I ran up the hill real quick. When I say real quick, like within 30 seconds of trying to feel the situation out, I need to get back up to my son and say, we got to move again. We're going to pressure him until he won't take any more. We've dealt with bulls like this before. And as I go up the hill, I get about halfway. I'm looking for my son because I'm not sure exactly where he is. I can't see him. As I move up there, I look up the hill, I would say 60 yards from me. That bull is standing there staring at me.
Oh, no. Oh.
And I'm staring at him. I'm like, oh, no. And I look off to my left, and probably 20, 25 yards is my son. And he's got an arrow nock. He's not at full draw. He's just sitting there. And I could see a lot of crap between him and the bull. But he could see the bull.
Dang.
I look at the bull, and I'm like, no. And so obviously this lasted maybe 5 seconds. The bull turned, and it was a big bull. This
big
bull,
sucker,
he went 330 inches. That is a monster in this area. He was a monster. He was huge.
Yeah.
Well, I went over to my son. I went, oh, no. I said, he saw me. And my son said, why did you come up? And I said, because I heard his bugle go up. He goes, he was walking right to me. I said, what happened? He goes, as you were calling, he was coming down. There's a bunch of brush right there. You see that big old line of brush? I said, yeah. And he goes, he stopped at it and couldn't get through. So he decided he was going to go around it. So he went up the hill. He was coming back around it. I said, that's where I thought he was leaving. He bugled up there. And I thought he was going away. He goes, nope. He bugled. He went up. He went around the brush and he was coming back down. And he says he was going to walk right by me as he was going to you. And I thought he was leaving again. And I blew it on for him right there on that bull, but it was a pig of a bull for this area. It was one of the biggest bulls this area has seen, let me tell you. Because it gets a lot of pressure. It was.
Yeah.
And that was it. We didn't go back up that hill, but just showing you that it happens to all of us. It was just one of those things, but it was a growler bull.
That kind of
we're going to go kill him this year.
Oh, I hope you do. And I have full confidence, and it actually makes me feel a little bit better hearing somebody like you having a story like that, because I just don't feel like you're a real elk hunter until you've had your heart broken like that. And,
I felt bad for my son. More than, it's not like he's never killed an elk. But it was I blew it. I was the one that screwed the pooch on this one. Dang it.
I know the feeling. I just screwed the pooch on calling in some turkeys the other day for my daughters. But I did redeem myself a couple days later. And so.
Oh, well, good. Awesome.
Yeah. So that worked out. But Paul, this has been fantastic. I always appreciate your willingness to come on the show and spend. You don't just come on for a few minutes. I mean, you spend time, and I feel like you really have a passion to share the information that you have and your experience with others, so that they actually learn something. Like they can actually take this information that we talked about and apply it in their own hunt. And I'm so excited about it. I'm really excited about this episode.
Well, thank you.
It's always a pleasure having you on. You're one of my favorite elk hunters, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on. The Elknut app, they can get it anywhere, right? Android, Apple, all the different phones, whatnot. And that's just you said it was $9.95?
Yes, it is. It's $9.95. Yes,
guys, that's like a coffee at Starbucks for those of you.
Oh, it's a ridiculous price. I mean, it is. But you know what? It's not all about money. It's about trying to educate people, trying to make them, help them to be better elk hunters. For all these, especially people that don't live out west where elk are, and they're trying to hunt with their family, daughters, sons, wife, and cut the learning curve as quick as they can. And enjoy a lot of the fruits of their labor as we have, and so that's what we were trying to do, is help these individuals to get out there, and appreciate it and enjoy some success at the same time.
I think that's important, because there's a lot of people that don't have the experiences that you and I have, in a sense of living amongst the elk. A lot of people, they live in Boise or Portland or Salt Lake City or Denver, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to this lifestyle, your opportunity to observe amongst the elk where the elk live is limited. And so having something like the Elknut app and these other platforms out there that offer this information is super helpful, so that you can make your own memories, notch your own tags, fill your own freezers, put your own antlers on the wall. And I think that's it says a lot about your character, Paul, for you're willing to share that kind of stuff. So I appreciate it, man. I always have fun. It's a great time.
Well, good.
So I always feel like I always feel guilty. I'm keeping you too long or something, but I could just talk with you for hours. And so I'll let you go for tonight. But again, I appreciate it. This is an excellent School of September episode. We covered the Elknut app. Is there anything else you want people to know?
No. I mean, we're good. This wasn't about the Elknut app anyway. This is about Elknut. So that's
exactly.
Awesome. Thank you.
Exactly. So guys, go jump on, get you the Elknut app. It's fun. Everybody I know that elk hunts, they have your app already. So I feel
that's great. Thank you.
So hopefully there's some new folks out there that can go jump on and grab that app. But this season, I want to keep in touch with you, Paul, and see how your season goes. And if we need to jump on and do a season recap, we could certainly do that. So, again, thank you very much. And let's keep in touch, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much for having me on, Jim. Appreciate it very much.
You bet. You made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We sure appreciate your support. This is Jim Huntsman signing off and reminding you to check us out at Instagram at The Western Huntsman and on Facebook at The Western Huntsman. And you can also check out the website at thewesternhuntsman.com. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.